and managers are watching you and coming to you all the time. You feel like someone is watching you while you're sleeping. Emily Gwendelsberger, author of On the Clock, What Low-Wage Work Did to Me and How It Drives America Insane, also went undercover at Amazon. She explained, "It took my body 2 weeks to adjust to the agony of walking 15 miles a day and doing hundreds of squats. But as the physical stress got more manageable, the mental stress of being held to the productivity standards of a robot became an even bigger problem. You can't slow down if you're tired or hurting." It's why some employees have shared stories about how they've broken down crying at work. Speed is the priority, so they can get packages out for 1 or 2 day shipping. This leads to stress and mistakes, which leads to injuries and death. And this problem extends out to their drivers as well, who use a navigation software called Dora or Rabbit. It both recommends and monitors routes for drivers, tracking their every turn. The software gives them a 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks, and they're told that 999 of 1,000 packages must be delivered on time or face termination. When you're driving a delivery van, barreling down the road, the pressure to perform means there are a lot of mistakes and potential deaths involved. Like in August of 2022, a 2-year-old girl was playing outside in a parking lot when she was fatally hit by an Amazon driver trying to get their packages out on time. She was declared dead on the scene. It left the family grieving, unable to sleep at night, saying, "There are no words to describe the amount of pain." They wanted to sue Amazon, but they ran into an issue of liability. While they were an Amazon driver, they didn't technically work for Amazon. That's because as a means to extend Amazon's network and to keep their hands clean, Amazon has turned to outsourcing some of their deliveries to independent companies. They provide them with all the technology to monitor their drivers, provide routes, determine how many packages must be delivered in a day, and decide on what vans to use and how the drivers must dress. Then they leave it up to the company on how to maintain their workforce. As you might imagine, with Amazon being the majority or sometimes their sole client, these companies will do anything to keep the contract to deliver these packages, even if it's at the expense of the workers. As a result, they take on the deadly Amazon mentality of optimization at all costs, without even realizing it. They've been reported to have forced their workers to skip meals, urinate in bottles, speed to make deliveries, and not wear seatbelts to get out of the truck faster. This resulted in the horrific loss of an innocent life in December 2016, when a driver named Vladimir Gray flew down the Chicago roads, trying to deliver all the packages in time for Christmas. Amazon Echo speakers were the hot item that year. They even sold out. However, in the rush, Vladimir hit Telesfora Escamilla, an 84-year-old grandmother who was walking at a crosswalk. He crushed her diaphragm, ribs, and skull. As she lay dying in a pool of blood, he leapt out of the van and screamed, "Oh my God." After police arrived, he tested negative for drugs and alcohol and was later charged with reckless homicide, which he would be acquitted for in 2019. When the family of the deceased sued Amazon, the delivery company, Inpax, and the driver, Amazon claimed no responsibility, as it technically wasn't their driver. In response to BuzzFeed and ProPublica reporting on this and other fatalities caused by drivers of Inpax and 2 other companies, Amazon dropped these companies, further distancing themselves from blame. As a result of losing these contracts, a total of more than 2,000 workers from these companies lost their jobs. One step Amazon took to allegedly make things safer for the delivery drivers was to install an AI surveillance system in 2021 called Netradyne. It's designed to make the drivers much safer on the road by capturing violations like texting on your phone, staying too close to cars, and not using your turn signal. In theory, this should make things safer for the employees and pedestrians alike. The problem is, it tends to punish drivers for mistakes they didn't make. Like how one driver in Los Angeles kept getting violations for not maintaining a safe distance when he was constantly being cut off, or another who was using his phone for directions. And even with the AI surveillance system, Amazon drivers are still causing deaths on the road. In November of 2024, an Amazon driver hit and killed a 79-year-old woman who was crossing the street. He fled the scene and allegedly continued delivering packages. It's unclear why he kept delivering packages, but one might assume it was due to the pressures of the job. While narcotics were found in the van, There's no report of him being under the influence at the time. In this case, surveillance didn't help make things safer, but perhaps that's not the ultimate goal of surveillance. Like in the warehouses, it may just be another means to track their employees to make sure that speed is always the #1 priority. Ultimately, it's not just one thing that contributes to these deaths. It's a culmination of policies, poor safety practices, and the stress and
At this point, I'm more tempted to say it's the customer's fault. While Amazon has a big hand on this situation, the customer is the one ultimately that's gonna purchase and vote with their money for this kind of behavior.
inducing environment. So, will Amazon ever be held accountable for any of this? Well, not if they have anything to say about it. On September 24th, 2017, 59-year-old Philip Lee Terry was working a shift at an Amazon warehouse in Indiana. He was told to fix a forklift. With a wrench in hand, he passed under the forks with a platform attached to it. That's when the 1,200-pound piece of equipment fell onto him. It took 2 hours before someone found a pool of blood, with him in the center of it, dead. It's unclear why, with all that surveillance, he wasn't found until then. But regardless of why it took so long, OSHA Inspector John Stallone arrived the next day. He noticed that a pole that was designed to hold up the forklifts, as per safety regulations, wasn't used. Either you need to prop up the forks, or, more ideally, never pass underneath them. The hydraulics can give out, and the equipment on the forks can fall on you. Again, it's hard to speculate why Philip didn't follow regulations, but to quote one Amazon employee, it's incredibly hard to meet rate while following all safety procedures. But on top of that, it was also discovered that there was no written record of Terry having received any formal training, so he may not have known what the safety procedures in a situation like this were. Inspector Stallone said that safety was second to production demands for Amazon. Due to the inadequate training, OSHA fined Amazon $28,000, a small fee for the $2.5 trillion company. Stallone did want to raise the fines, but got pushback. Feeling something was off, he started recording the conversations he had with his boss. Rightly so, because eventually his boss asked him to shift the blame from Amazon to the employee and to lift the fine. This was in a recording he shared with Reveal, an independent news organization. His boss wanted to partner with Amazon to help them become a leader in safety. She went on to say that Terry was likely on drugs, even though the coroner said there was nothing but nicotine in Terry's system. There was a reason for this, according to Stallone. Amazon was looking for a place to set up their new headquarters, and the city of Indianapolis was a finalist. Stallone had a meeting with the labor commissioner, who stated it would be nice to get the headquarters and asked Stallone to back off from the investigation or resign. Shortly after, Stallone's supervisors said he was going to be terminated for job performance issues, and so Stallone ended up resigning. Then he reached out to Reveal and provided the recordings, but sadly, nothing came out of the exposure. And a year later, with Stallone out of the way, Amazon signed a deal with OSHA to waive away all of the fines and put the blame of this incident entirely on the deceased employee. And ready for the real kicker? In the end, Amazon didn't even choose Indianapolis for their headquarters. And it wasn't the only time OSHA was steeped in corruption with Amazon. Like during the blistering summer of 2022, when 3 workers died within the span of 3 weeks in Amazon warehouses across New Jersey. Temperatures during those 3 weeks were excessive, ranging from 90 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. The first death took place on July 13th, the second day of the Amazon Prime Day sales event. During the pandemic, Amazon's 2022 Prime Day event garnered $11.9 billion, an increase of 62.8% from the previous year's revenue of $7.31 billion. So one could assume the workers at the Carteret, New Jersey fulfillment center probably had their hands full. Rafael Ronaldo Motafria had been complaining about the heat in his unconditioned workspace. Co-workers said he was pleading for fans, but he was told to work through it. Then he collapsed and passed away. Then, on July 24th, at the Robbinsville, New Jersey Amazon warehouse, Roger Boland fell off a ladder and hit his head, dying in hospital 3 days later. And on August 4th, at a delivery facility in Monroe, a man named Eric Vadinsky was hospitalized and died 4 days after, but not much more can be found about this incident. OSHA investigated the 3 deaths. They claimed that Raphael had a previous heart condition which led to a heart attack, and Amazon wasn't held responsible, again, even though heat stroke is known to cause heart attacks. Then when OSHA investigated the second incident of Roger, who fell off a ladder, it's reported that OSHA was denied access to the room where the accident occurred, until a few weeks later once the heat had died down. They determined that he had died of a seizure, but the doctors noted that he had an extremely high body temperature, and he had died of a brain injury due to the fall, so it could be possible that he was affected by the heat wave somehow. But regardless, Amazon wasn't deemed responsible. For the third, not much is known because no information was released, but as you might expect, Amazon wasn't held responsible. What's more odd is that OSHA's reports are supposed to be made public after their conclusion, yet only the report for their first death was released, which is why Warehouse Life, an Amazon workers' rights group, filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act to release the other reports on August 14th of 2024. OSHA never responded, which prompted the workers' rights group to file a lawsuit in November. As of February 2025, the reports still haven't been released. Amazon went on to state they bear no responsibility for these deaths and wish these tragic incidents wouldn't be twisted into something they weren't. But these deaths most likely could have been avoided if they had better working conditions, with proper air conditioning. And this isn't the only time that Amazon has forced their employees to work through these intense weather conditions at the expense of their lives, all in the name of maximizing profits. In fact, just 8 months prior, Amazon warehouse workers were told to keep working during the deadliest December tornado outbreak in U.S. history. It was December 10th, 2021, in Edwardsville, Illinois. The day was warm for this time of year. The weather was ominous. The last 3 days were filled with warnings from meteorologists, with forecast models showing severe weather. But with the holidays looming, it was peak season, as Amazon referred to it, with temp workers hired and regular employees working overtime. There was even an added incentive for the drivers. If they could deliver 200 packages that day, they would get a $25 gift card. So it wasn't uncommon for the drivers to stuff their vehicles with several hundred boxes at a time. One driver, Deontay Yancey, was out delivering packages without his coat since it was oddly warm out. But as he dropped off the packages one by one, the customers would look at him surprised. "Why are you still working?" they would ask. All he could do was shrug and say, "Because Amazon wants me to." Perhaps it had something to do with the tornado warning put out that morning. The warning was set to a moderate risk, which is actually quite high, being level 4 out of 5. Damaging gusts, large hail, and a few long-track tornadoes during the evening hours were predicted. All the while, Amazon warehouse workers and their drivers, under the watchful eye of their managers and AI surveillance, ready to catch any infraction, were still trudging along, trying to avoid bathroom breaks and meet their rate as time counted down on their displays. At 5:30 p.m., a tornado watch was fully in effect as supercell thunderstorms spread across Missouri, and by 7 p.m., they were making their way to the St. Louis metropolitan area, near the Edwardsville Amazon warehouses. Leslie Campbell, an Amazon worker who was off that day, used to chase tornadoes as a teenager, but this storm was unlike anything she had experienced before. It became pitch white from the rain, she explained. It had a weird feeling to it. It was around this time when sirens started to blare in nearby areas. Texts between an Amazon driver and her supervisor were obtained by Bloomberg News, revealing the frightening situation. At 7:08 p.m., the driver texted her supervisor, stating, "Radio's been going off." The supervisor responded with, "Okay, just keep driving. We can't just call people back for a warning unless Amazon tells us to do so." As the winds picked up, the storm got worse, and warnings were becoming more frequent. At 7:35 p.m., a tornado touched down in St. Charles County, 48 miles from the Amazon facility. This was the first one to hit the area, and many more tornadoes would come. In fact, it ended up being one of the deadliest Decembers on record. An EF4 touched down a bit earlier at 7:07 p.m., south of the facility in Arkansas.
With motion arrays, easy-to-use motion graphics, you can enjoy the creative process.
For reference, EF5 is the highest the rating can go. This one in St. Charles was an EF3, still dangerous with winds as high as 165 miles per hour. It flattened 2 homes, leading to 1 fatality. It was around this time when the employees of the National Weather Service took shelter, and their colleagues in Kansas City took over the tornado watch. Meanwhile, 3 employees at the Amazon warehouse asked to go home to shelter, but were threatened to lose their job if they went home. Something similar happened to the driver as revealed by her text. At 7:40 p.m., she talked to her supervisor again. Tornado alarms are going off over here. Just keep delivering for now. We have to wait for word from Amazon. If we need to bring people back, the decision will ultimately be up to them. I will let you know if the situation changes at all. I'm talking with them now about it. How about for my own personal safety, I'm going to head back. Having alarms going off next to me and nothing but locked buildings around me isn't sheltering in place. That's wanting to turn this van into a casket. Hour left of delivery time, and if you look at the radar, the worst of the storm is going to be right on top of me in 30 minutes. It was actual sirens. If you decide to come back, that choice is yours, but I can tell you it won't be viewed as your own safety. The safest practice is to stay exactly where you are. If you decide to return with your packages, it will be viewed as you refusing your route, which will ultimately end with you not having a job come tomorrow morning. The sirens are just a warning. Except these sirens weren't just a warning. And what the supervisor failed to understand was that being in a vehicle is actually the worst place you can be. It can throw you around. If you find yourself in a car during a tornado, drive at 90 degrees away from the tornado's path. But ideally, try to seek shelter in a building, putting as
I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter if you're in or out of the vehicle. You're still gonna get wiped by the tornado, but right.
many walls between you and the tornado. A center room, ideally in the basement, away from windows if you have a storm shelter like many homes do in this area. That's obviously the best place. But she didn't have anywhere to go. Going under nearby overpasses or bridges wasn't safe. The worry is debris from the side, not above. And they can act as tunnels, accelerating winds, so they end up being more dangerous. Lying under her car was bad too, as the car can roll on you. It's best to find lower ground if possible, then duck and cover. If there's really no other option, and no low ground, stay in the car, seatbelt on, stay below the windows, and cover your head with your hands, or ideally, a blanket to avoid broken glass. The supervisor kept telling her to shelter in place, even though she kept telling him there wasn't any shelter. With the storm 30 minutes away, she may have had time to go back. However, in the end, not going back to the facility actually may have saved her life. The text also revealed that strong winds had just hit the facility, tearing down one of the garage doors. The EF3 tornado luckily lifted at 8:01 p.m., and then another EF3 tornado.
So, you know, I hear the story, right? How is Amazon not incredible for this? How is that not covered that much? Kill the dragon, kill the dragon, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it, kill it. Free meat! Woo! Free meat! Free meat! Woo!
Tornado came down at 8:27, this time about 3/4 of a mile from the Amazon facility, and it was heading right for them. Clayton Cope, a 29-year-old U.S. Navy veteran who worked at the Amazon facility, was described as the person who would always put a smile on your face. His parents were watching the news at the time, which told them of the tornado that had touched down. A red
It's a Reddit post, so take it with Amazon job rating. 3.5, $3.6. Indeed, these nuts. 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 Indeed, these nuts.
Line of its predicted path sent it right through the facility. So one of them picked up the phone and called Clayton. Luckily, Amazon's ban on cell phones was temporarily lifted during the COVID pandemic. His mother explained, "We told him the storm was coming and he needed to take shelter. He said he needed to tell someone." That was the last time they ever spoke to him. In warehouse DLI-4, one of the 3 Amazon warehouses, sirens were going off, and it was chaos. Reports say that the tornado warning came about 10 minutes prior to the tornado's touchdown, but to get word across the entire warehouse, which was the length of about 3 football fields, it was a significant challenge. Plus, they were caught in the middle of a shift change, so people were in the process of arriving and leaving, including the drivers. As per their emergency action plan, they were supposed to use a megaphone. Unfortunately, it was locked in a cage, and nobody had access to it. So they resorted to yelling, especially because they needed to tell people where to shelter. That was problem number 2. Illinois and the surrounding states are especially prone to tornadoes. Normally, they see an average of about 60 tornadoes a year. But in 2024, there was a record of 142 tornadoes. Yet, when Amazon driver Yamarco Hickman was asked if he had ever done a tornado drill, he said, "No, I just froze. I was pretty much kissing the concrete." None of the employees interviewed afterward ever recollected doing a tornado drill. In fact, their written emergency action plan didn't provide a location either. Driver Jada Williams described the event. "It was so many people yelling and screaming. I was trying to calm people down. I started having an asthma attack." But those who did know where to shelter yelled out to go to the bathroom, which was the shelter area, but not a proper storm shelter. The third problem was that the warehouse had 2 bathrooms, one in the north side and one in the south side. Only the north side was the designated shelter area. 39 employees made their way to the north bathroom, but without clear instructions, 7 employees went to the south bathroom, including Clayton, the Navy veteran. Meanwhile, just outside the warehouse, the tornado had begun ripping electrical poles out of the ground and throwing cars in the parking lot into the air.
Truck these nuts in your mouth. Put these nuts in your mouth. 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 These nuts in your mouth.
Twitch's biggest con artist was exposed, and I'm here for the forensic analysis. Look, the crime has already been committed. It's already been confessed to. So we're not here for any of that. Instead, we're here to figure out how and why. I'm talking, of course, about Sliker. He's a famous live streamer who used his connections with fans and other live streamers to beg and borrow over $300,000 and never returned it. And so I was up all night talking to the victims of all of this, and their stories are wild. And I should start by saying, I don't mean Sliker is the biggest con artist in terms of money. Like, he didn't rob Fort Knox, he didn't steal a famous painting. I mean, he's the biggest in terms of the sheer number of victims who have come forward. I mean, this guy was working hard. Basically, if you had a Twitch account, this guy came to you for money. But there are several extra details you need to know as well. As I said, Sliker already confessed. I'm not prosecuting anything here. I'm not alleging anything here. He admitted to everything last night on a live stream after being exposed by several fans and streamers.
I'm not asking for forgiveness, but every single day I felt guilty. Every single day. I don't know what to say to the people I borrowed from. Every single day I was guilty. Guilty in asking.
Honestly, I kind of respect that he doesn't try to dispute the facts here. He just kind of owns up to him and said, yeah, I did it. Yeah, it was bad. But then after that, I kind of get a problem with what he says when we talk about why he did it. Because Sliker says that he did all this because of a gambling addiction he suffers from.
I started to gamble with money, and this was even when I started having my first job. I used to gamble a lot of my money. Basically all my Twitch money. And then even then,
Gamble these nuts. Gamble these nuts. Gamble these nuts. Gamble these nuts. Gamble these nuts.
But this is the epitome of gambling. I want to say that.
C'est une bonne chose de mettre la main sur un nouveau véhicule. Retirez vos mains d'un nouveau véhicule grâce à Super Cruise Dawnstar. C'est encore
Bird is the
mieux.
these nuts. The bird. Bird is the these nuts. Bird is the these nuts.
Get the best game.
The bird. Bird is these nuts.
And play what you want at any time on any platform.
These nuts. These nuts.
Start now with instant gaming.
Don't touch it, man.
Now look, I do honestly believe Sliker has a gambling addiction. I just don't think it explains away everything in the way that he thinks it does. For example, a gambling addiction explains how Sliker lost his money, but it doesn't explain how he lost everyone else's money or got it in the first place. I mean, I feel like he's trying to explain everything with the story of like, I have a gambling problem. But when you dig into the story, you find that Sliker isn't just a gambling addict, he's also a professional con artist, which we're gonna see in a second. So while he does need help, he also needs to face consequences because he played an active role in all this. It's like meeting an alcoholic who you find out broke into your house and cracked your safe, and they get caught at the police station. You go up to them and you say, how did you open my safe? And they go, oh, sorry, I'm an alcoholic. You'd be like, yeah, but how'd you crack open my safe? And then imagine they go, oh, well, you know, I just can't stop drinking. I'd be like, okay, I don't think Jack Daniels taught you these skills, right? So my point is, yes, Sliker clearly has an addiction, but he also appears to be a professional con man. And we're going to talk about that right now, because I interviewed multiple victims and created a master list of the people who Sliker scammed, because I needed to get like a bird's eye view of this. There are over 55 people on this list owed money right now, and the total scammed is over $384,000. And what did I learn from these 55 people? Well, there were a lot of different ways Sliker liked to approach people, but he really liked this bank scam method.
My bank account got locked. Temporarily locked. Don't have access to my money, sadly. Because the UK banks, but whatever. I was wondering if I asked if I could borrow money and I'd pay you back. Now, I'd even give you extra.
That's right, the old frozen bank trick. Basically, you'd go to people and say, hey, look, I can't access my funds. You have to give me money. I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back even more. And it's sort of incredible to watch because not only is all of this a lie, but he's just so good at acting ashamed. Like, if I saw this, I'd believe, you know, oh man, he's petrified to ask me. But come to find out, He's been telling everyone the same sob story over and over again.
Hey, I just recently got into some thing with my bank. Basically, my bank account got locked. This has happened for like 3-4 days. Yo, Mo, I'm not hacked, I'm not.
So yeah, it turns out he wasn't ashamed at all. In fact, if you didn't believe him, he would even say other things like, you know, on my mama, when they didn't believe him. Or he would swear on his religion that he wasn't lying while lying.
Listen to me, Lapelli. I swear I'm a Muslim. I swear on the Quran, I ain't lying. I won't scam you. Lapelli, on my mum's life, on my
Alright. I'll be back in a few hours, guys. I gotta go.